If you know cameras, then you know exactly what we're talking about today. This is gonna be all things hands-on with the EOS R5 and hopefully not any overheating issues. So let's talk about this today. Okay, so all jokes aside, what we're here to talk about with this camera today is essentially the features, how it performs, how it feels to use, and just how Canon's improved from the EOS R to the R5. And there is some big body, physical body changes that they've done that I really appreciate. And this camera is going to be the best hybrid camera, I think, on the market. We talked a lot about the Sony a7 III and the R5 in the last few videos I've released, but I did mention a lot, I'm just gonna quickly touch on this, is that the Sony series have split into the R line and the a7S line. However, this R5 is probably the most hybrid camera on the market. It does your 45 megapixels, and because it's got such a high density pixel sensor inside this camera, they're able to give you 8K RAW. So that is essentially how it's a hybrid and how they're able to do a bit of everything with it. But let's talk about how the R5 performs in a photography sense and a videography sense. Physically, it's a lot bigger than the R. I'm shooting on the R right now, just to let you know. If you're watching this video, the footage you're seeing is 4K in the EOS R, because I want to hold the camera while I talk about it. And the body is a little bit bigger. We have the flap on the side here. Standard features for the Canon cameras, however, the body is a bit bigger, the screen is a bit bigger. I miss this little joystick here, that's the best thing. And the scroll functionality on your main wheel is a feature that I think should have been implemented in the R, but unfortunately wasn't, and is put back on the R5 because photographers like the scroll wheels. But I want to touch on some other things with the camera as well, other than just physical appearance. The CF Express cards, which are the new Canon cards that they have released, not that they've released, but the ones that they're using in this current camera, you need to make sure that you're picking up write speeds that do right for the R5. Because if you don't have the right speeds for keeping up with the R5, it's gonna be a case of not being able to film in the 8K RAW and or not being able to film in the 4K 120. You need some powerful SD cards to write as quickly as the data is being produced from the camera body itself. So do keep that in mind if you are interested in picking up the R5. All right, so moving right along, something really small that I noticed when I picked this camera up for the first time is the mic jack. So on the side here, we have the usual side camera mic jack. On the R, it was a case of doing this weird little swivel pivot thing to be able to switch the screen from one direction to the other. But now, because of the repositioned mic input, that is no longer an issue, that it is completely out of the way. And this is just a tiny little quality of life things, especially for us people who do content like this, who have the LCD screen facing us and having to flip between them. It just makes life a lot easier and just makes the whole process of using this camera a lot smoother, which makes it streamlined and just an all-round good time. The scroll wheel at the front of or control ring rather, at the front of the lens is the same. Having the extra scroll wheel on our thumb means you have even more wheels and things and dials to change. So ISO, f-stop, exposure, whatever you want to do. We also have here, you can do white balance. So by having this ring at the front here as well, we now have 4 dials we can put to pretty much any setting we want, which is really nice. The resolution for this camera, you see these photos and you believe these content creators and these photographers who talk about how the 45 megapixel camera is amazing, until you actually shoot with a 45 megapixel camera. I have got a few photos that my friend here has taken. I'm gonna put them up on the screen right now. This is on the 45 megapixel camera. You can zoom in so tight and the eye is still tack sharp, in focus, and just being able to zoom in. This is exciting stuff, being able to zoom in that far and still being able to see such clarity in the eyeball or the skin. There's no distortion, there's no resolution drop. You can punch in billboard size on a 45 megapixel camera. It's a game changer when it comes to photography. The R is a really good camera and I've had no issues with resolution. However, being able to do this and punch in that much, cropping in, whatever it may be, it's a game changer for photos. And as photographers, we need more resolution sometimes. I will say the file sizes are massive to compensate for the fact that it is a 45 megapixel camera, but if that's the trade-off to get amazing quality images, I will happily take that trade-off any day. Just wanted to say as well that everything that was filmed at the start of this video, all the little B-roll goodness that you did see, was both shot on the R5 and the R. So anything that you saw in that video that had the R5 in the shot was filmed only on the R. However, everything else was shot on the R5. So that would be in the 4K 120. It was a breeze to edit and look through. However, if you don't have the computer to be able to handle 4K 120 footage, you get used to using proxies and get used to having a bit of a slower process because it takes some real horsepower to be able to edit that kind of quality footage. So just keep that in mind. Also, just putting it out there, if you hear any noises in the background, my apologies. People working construction around here at the same time, which is kind of working around it. All right, so we got something new just in. We're having a look around to see if we can find any information about the R5's features that people haven't really touched on too much. So here's one of them. By now, everyone knows that the Canon EOS R5 can shoot 45 megapixel images and captures 8K video. In fact, these 35.4 megapixel stills pulled from the video files are actually better than most native photographs taken on most cameras, with a 30-something megapixel sensor. So if you even have log footage of 8K and you take a still with it, that quality image from the video is still better than most cameras, and I think that means also my R, unfortunately. But that is the kind of quality and the kind of gear that you are purchasing when you do get this quite hefty beast of a camera. So again, I stand by the fact that the Canon EOS R5 is for those who want to run and gun, shoot video and film, do a bit of everything when you're out on a shoot, and it is the all-in-one hybrid camera for 2020. I think that anything moving on with this and moving forward with this would be obviously overheating issues and that sort of stuff, but you have to remember that if you are picking up this is a tiny little body of a camera to be doing 8K raw footage. If you were to pick up a cinema grade camera, you're using boxes that would be the size of this plant. That is the kind of size that, a cinema grade RE camera would be. And that is because to be able to shoot raw footage, you also need to take into consideration that stuff gets hot. And those big cinema cameras have massive fans built into them to compensate and keep the insides of the thing cool. And the fact that you're getting that kind of footage and that kind of quality in this tiny little body without any fans means that heating is going to be an issue sometimes. And it's just going to be something you have to keep into consideration. Having timers, as I said in the other video, on this 4K and 8K footage would be a massive thing because it means that they can limit how long it'll shoot for, and in turn, it'll never overheat again, in theory. If you're shooting in the tropics somewhere where it's, 40-degree heat, it may still overheat, but easy fixes for these sorts of things that we're still getting insane quality out of. I'm gonna harp on it again. This is an insane camera. I just wanted to make this a quick little look into a first impressions of the EOS R5 and what I think about it looking at it for the very first time, which this essentially is. We've taken a few photos, we've had to play around with it, the stabilization is great, all of that sort of stuff. This camera is amazing, and that is my first impressions, and I think I'd stay the same opinion if I was to do a fully kitted out review. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe, all that sort of good stuff, and I hope we see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Bye bye.